You're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's begin with the top headlines making news around the world. Donald Trump threatens economic warfare against Iran and penalties for those it keeps ties with. 13 people are killed and dozens injured in Kyiv amid a massive Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital. And Turkey looks set to host another summit of the so-called Regional Four Group amid the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. US President Donald Trump has announced what he calls economic warfare against Iran and consequences for those that maintain trade links and ties with Tehran. In a post on his Truth Social site, Donald Trump said Iran has failed to take the opportunity to make a deal over Hormuz.
US President Donald Trump has threatened what he called tremendous economic consequences for any country that helps Iran or continues doing business with the country. In a Truth Social post, Trump announced what he described as the most crushing economic operation ever imposed on a country, saying Tehran had failed to reach a deal with Washington. Trump said the US still had additional sanctions it could impose. He also described the naval blockade extremely effective, while saying the Strait of Hormuz remained open despite Tehran saying it was shut. He added that it could become less important as alternative energy supplies expand.
It'll either be extremely good and oil prices are going to drop like a rock, or we'll continue to do exactly what we're doing. You know, they were talking about $350 a barrel, and it's today $84, $85. And we are getting a lot of oil out. But the other thing that's happened is people have found other alternatives, which they never thought about. Texas, Alaska, Louisiana, and other places.
Trump also warned that countries allowing banks, businesses, airports or government entities to support Iran could face economic penalties. The warning comes after a 60-day ceasefire expired on Monday. Tehran said it's now gone from a defensive to a fully offensive military posture after Trump said he wouldn't renew the pause in fighting. Iran's central bank governor also said Washington had not yet released frozen Iranian funds required under a memorandum of understanding between the two sides. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates has announced it is cutting financial and economic ties with Iran, while Iraq has urged that its economic interests and particular circumstances be taken into account. Shipping through the Strait of Hormuz showed no increase on Wednesday as US-Iran diplomatic efforts remained deadlocked. The conflict has disrupted a vital global energy route, contributing to higher oil and gas prices.
Meanwhile, Iran's parliament speaker has met with Iraqi leader in Baghdad to discuss regional stability and bilateral ties. Iraqi President Nizar Ahmadi reportedly emphasized the need for dialogue and diplomacy to end ongoing regional conflicts during his meeting with Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. A news correspondent to Rashir Law has more from Tehran.
Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf met his Iraqi counterpart as well as senior Iraqi officials during the first leg of his two-day visit to Baghdad. Before leaving Tehran on Wednesday, Ghalibaf said the talks would focus on strengthening bilateral relations and discussing regional developments. He also expressed hope that Iran and Iraq could contribute to shaping a new regional order without foreign involvement. According to Iranian state media, Ghalibaf and his Iraqi counterpart discussed accelerating work on the Shalamcha-Basra railway link and dredging the Arvand Rud waterway, which forms part of the Iran-Iraq border. Iraq's parliament speaker reportedly called for a special treatment for Iraqi oil exports passing through the Strait of Hormuz. Ghalibaf also held talks with Iraq's president and prime minister, stressing closer cooperation between Tehran and Baghdad on regional security and stability. Iran and Iraq fought an 8-year war from 1980 to 1988. Relations have since improved, with the two countries developing extensive political, economic, and security ties. Tehran also provided support to Baghdad in its campaign against ISIS after the group seized large parts of Iraqi territory. The current visit is expected to further discussions on infrastructure, trade, and regional cooperation between the two neighbors. Turash Shiralilu from Tehran for A News.
U.S. President Donald Trump has reaffirmed his friendly relationship with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un and criticized South Korea's lack of support over the U.S. campaign in the Strait of Hormuz. Trump said Seoul had refused at his request for help in the military campaign, despite relying on the United States for around 60% of its oil. Meanwhile, Donald Trump says Kim has responded after he reached out to him. He says he plans to meet the North Korean leader later this year and said the Asian nation held 57 very powerful nuclear weapons. However, Seoul believes Pyongyang has 8,220 warheads.
Successful now when you work.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but I do have a good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump says he delayed the start of the new U.S. tariff regime with Canada because he thought a deal had been reached with Prime Minister Mark Carney. The announcement of the pause came less than 2 hours before a 50% levy on nearly $20 billion Canadian imports was set to begin at midnight on Wednesday. Senior trade representatives for both countries have been holding talks in Washington. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is due to meet Canada's foreign minister at the White House later. Until a deal is formally reached, negotiators face a new deadline of just another after midnight on Saturday.
By the way, probably have a deal with Canada. You probably saw that. Very major tariffs were going on to Canada today. We delayed it for 3 days because I think we have a deal with the Prime Minister and good deal for everybody. So that's good. But the construction jobs are enormous. We're building the biggest plants anywhere in the world.
The U.S. national debt has hit a new milestone, surpassing $40 trillion for the first time. The figure highlights the scale of Washington's borrowing and growing concerns over the rising interest costs.
The United States national debt has surpassed $40 trillion for the first time, drawing fresh warnings that a fiscal crisis is brewing. It comes as costs balloon for social safety net programs and interest payments far outstrip revenues held back by tax cuts. The milestone comes just 5 months after the debt crossed $39 trillion, highlighting the rapid pace of government borrowing. Data from the U.S. Treasury Department shows the outstanding balance is $40.047 trillion, which includes more than $32 trillion held by the public and nearly $7.8 trillion in intra-governmental debt. Interest payments are now among the largest federal expenses, with the Peter G. Peterson Foundation warning they are becoming a growing burden.
Interest is our fastest growing government program. So we spend more than $3 billion a day on interest costs. We spend more on interest than we do on national defense. We'll spend $16 trillion on interest over the next 10 years.
The amount owed has more than doubled since 2017, with pandemic-era borrowing accounting for a significant share of the increase. Budget watchdogs warn that continued borrowing could fuel inflation, limit government spending priorities and raise costs for households. The Peterson Foundation says changes to spending and tax policy could help reduce deficits without immediate drastic cuts.
It's a huge problem, it's an urgent priority, but we actually do know how to fix it, and we have the ability to fix it. So it's just a matter of the political courage and political will to get things started.
The record debt adds to pressure on lawmakers to put federal finances on a more sustainable path.
Back to our top story now. An Iranian lawmaker has warned that Tehran would respond in kind if Washington ever used a nuclear weapon against Iran. Fatah Hossein Maliki, who is a member of the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Commission, did not explain how Iran could carry out such retaliation. Iran's position remains that it doesn't possess nuclear weapons. To discuss the latest developments in the conflict, we're joined by Atif Chowdhury, senior leader at Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, speaking to us from London. Atif, welcome and thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So how seriously should we take this Iranian warning? about responding proportionately to any U.S. nuclear attack?
I think by now, all the world and US, everyone knows now. So because they miscalculated Iran when they started the war, so they should be taken seriously. The only problem I can see at the moment, the both parties, especially America and Israel, they are still not understanding. They're still not taking Iran seriously. No, they never thought Iran could last that long with the war. So another thing they need to understand: more longer war will continue. It'll benefit only Iran because they have nothing more to lose. They have lost almost everything. Now they are gaining. So we need to get it settled as soon as possible. Pakistan always tried, and the Pakistan play a very vital role in the settlement. But by U.S. government, especially Trump, he should not listen cacophony of voices, cacophony of different opinions, and he should come back in reality and try to settle it. This is the crisis we are facing, and oil crisis is coming even worse. So prices are getting rises, inflation is getting rises, so it's affecting whole the region plus the rest of the world as well. So for my opinion, they should not take Iran lightly, and they should, this is a war. Everybody should be serious in that, and everybody should take their opponent as in a serious way, and they should go back to dialogue. They should sit and try to settle that. It's we they just become a laughing stock at the moment. They say something one day, then they back out, especially US government. They are not, they are not consistent, and it looks like in this way we cannot settle it.
Mr. Chaudhry, Donald Trump has announced an unprecedented economic campaign against Iran. How much additional pressure can the Iranian economy realistically withstand?
See, they are suffering a lot, and they said we don't have a nuclear power. Whatever Trump need or Israel need, they don't want Iran to be a nuclear power, which they said we don't have it. So, and they are already suffering a lot. But I think now they have learned how to sustain. It will, of course, it will hurt, but I don't think it will hurt the way Trump is anticipating. So they Trump have threatened a lot of time, but he had to back out. So as I said, at the end, it looked like it's a laughing stock in the world that if they wanted to war, and then they come out, they started negotiation, then they finished they sabotage the negotiation, then at the end we saw an agreement, they back out from the agreement. Now the sanctions, to me, I think might be backed out again in couple of days. They said, oh, we want to give it a try. So it's more of the threatening than the actual implementation. But we don't need, we I think we don't have to go to that route. There's a lot of people who can, you can be play as a middleman, like Pakistan, Qatar. They both play a very vital role. They should involve them and get it sorted.
Mr. Chaudhry, in your view, could these new U.S. measures actually force Tehran back to the negotiating table, or could they instead harden Iran's position?
With the way we have looked so far since the war started, I think they will know. They thought it's a blackmailing, so it's not hard. There's difference between a blackmailing and hard negotiation. Hard negotiation, everybody have right, but how, to me it looked like Iran will not be uh, no fall for it, and instead of going for negotiation, they'll take even harder stance, but which nobody afford. It's not Iran, not America, rest of the world. Everybody is suffering because of that. So at the end, there's no war, there's nothing which not finish on the table. Everybody have to come on the table, but they are trying to play their cards more and more. But I think we had enough cards play. This is another card by Trump. But I think he should finish and come back on table and settle it. What you ask, I don't think Iran will buy that.
So the Strait of Hormuz remains a major sticking point. What would a realistic compromise over the waterway look like?
Both sides have to, we'll say, compromise or settling terms. Iran now said they want a control over Hamas, and America don't want to give them. The problem is both need a face saving. Is for me, both wanted to show their public and the world that they did not lost the war. So there should be a middle way. Until both get a middle way, we will not see a ceasefire, or there'll be a ceasefire then start again. We need a permanent solution. And secondly, America and rest of the world have to make Israel understand they cannot go back what they decided, and they cannot just do a ceasefire and after that they start bombing again. So uh, I think America have to come out of the covering shell of Israel. They have to act as a superpower. Um, if they'll just take one side, it won't get it settled. So America should try to settle it, then pressurize one side. I'm not taking any one side. I'm just anti-war. I'm not anti any country. We just need peace. And as a citizen of this world, we need peace. We don't need war from any side. They should come on the table and stop the war. Let the other people live their peaceful life.
So, Mr. Chaudhry, how dangerous is the current combination of military pressure, economic warfare, and stalled diplomacy? Could the U.S. pressure campaign push Iran to take more aggressive action against American or allied interests across the region?
Of course, because if America have to understand Iran have lost almost everything. They're pushing them on the corner. After that, they have to retaliate. They have no option left. So there's nothing much to lose. So it will, as you said, it will push them to retaliate even stronger. They'll try to do whatever they could do. So they don't have much. The problem is people who get pressurized if there are a lot of things to lose. And Iran don't have much to lose. Their infrastructure have been lost, and their economy have been lost. So they have nothing much to lose. So it will make them, it will push them to retaliate even stronger. And they, whatever they haven't used, they'll use their all the weapons. Everybody knows they have lot of missiles, and they are producing more missiles. All technology is missile based, and they will attack all the military bases of region, and all the country will suffer within the region. So we'll end up at a chaos.
So, just briefly, what role can Pakistan play in bringing Washington and Tehran back to negotiations, given its previous mediation efforts?
See, it was a huge effort by Pakistan, and both parties trusted. Now, I think Qatar is also part of this one. So Qatar and Pakistan, both party, if they agree, I think they will agree, and they always show interest on Pakistan. So Pakistan can play another role. They can bring back similar. We can have another accord like Islamabad accord, and we have. But again, now they put Pakistan in the bad position as well. Pakistan, mediator is always a bad guy because both parties think mediator is taking side of the other party. But somehow, with the good effort of Pakistan, it did a very very good mediation role, which they can play again. But this time, Pakistan need a surety as well. Both parties will abide whatever agreement they made, and they will not back out for that. And I think Pakistan again is the best choice for them to bring back to the table. And Pakistan is doing it. Pakistan haven't stopped mediation; they're still doing it in the back doors. But it should be concluded as soon as possible, and Pakistan will play the role.
Atif Chaudhry, senior leader at Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, thank you very much for your time and for sharing your analysis with us. We appreciate your insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. After the break, 13 people are killed and dozens injured in Kyiv amid a massive Russian missile attack on Ukraine's capital. Stay with us on E! News. Welcome back. You're watching E! News. A deadly overnight Russian air assault has struck Ukraine's capital and surrounding areas, killing at least 13 people and injuring dozens more. Moscow says its forces targeted military-related facilities, while Kyiv says civilian sites were also damaged and is calling for stronger air defenses.
A day of mourning has been declared for Friday in Ukraine after at least a dozen people were killed in a large-scale Russian missile and drone attack overnight in Kyiv and the surrounding area. That's according to the capital's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko. Officials say more than 40 others were injured. Ukrainian authorities said the strikes damaged apartment buildings, warehouses, a school and a children's hospital across several districts of the capital. The country's air force said Russia launched dozens of hypersonic missiles, including ballistic and 168 drones. Officials said many were intercepted, but ballistic ones remained a major challenge. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has renewed calls for Western allies to provide more air defense missiles, particularly Patriot interceptors, saying shortages are leaving the capital vulnerable to ballistic attacks. Russia's defense ministry said the latest strikes targeted military facilities, including sites producing drone components, a military depot and a logistics hub. Separately, Russia and Ukraine exchanged 103 prisoners each in a United Arab Emirates-mediated swap, with the released Russian servicemen transferred to Belarus for medical assistance.
Ukraine's parliament has formally approved Yevgeny Kamara as the country's new defense minister. Following the vote, President Volodymyr Zelensky ordered him to rapidly expand Ukraine's capacity for deep military strikes. Zelensky says the immediate priority is overhauling domestic arms production and procurement systems. Kamara, who replaces the ousted Mikhailo Fyodorov, has also been tasked with working alongside local manufacturers to strengthen the country's air defenses.
My main task for the Minister of Defense of Ukraine in these circumstances is to effectively adjust our defense system, our production and procurement systems, and our supply chain to the armed forces. This adjustment that the protection of life in Ukraine receives everything necessary to repel Russian attacks, to hold our positions on the front line, and carry out our own active actions and deliver significant blows to Russia in response to its terror.
Poland has scrambled military aircraft and placed its air defense and radar systems on heightened readiness amid the increased attacks on Ukraine. Warsaw says necessary forces and resources had been activated in response to Russian long-range aviation activity. The aerial standby lasted for over 3 hours, standing down around 6:30 a.m. on Thursday morning. The military added that the operations were preventive, aimed at securing airspace and protecting citizens along the border with Ukraine. Motorists in Moscow are facing long queues and strict purchasing limits as fuel shortages hit the Russian capital. The disruption follows months of targeted Ukrainian drone strikes on oil refineries, compounded by growing seasonal demand. Major suppliers have now capped how much gasoline drivers can buy on a single trip.
The daily commute in Moscow now includes a hunt for petrol. Across the capital and surrounding regions, drivers are facing closed stations, dry pumps, and long waits. Shortages that began in the Russian provinces earlier this summer have now firmly taken hold in the city, forcing motorists to drive from station to station just to fill their tanks.
We have been to 5 petrol stations already, and there was no fuel. Last week, fuel was available, and now there is no fuel again.
To preserve dwindling supplies, Russia's major oil companies have introduced strict rationing. Rosneft has capped gasoline sales at just 30 litres per vehicle, while Gazprom Neft and Tatneft have imposed similar limits. The suppliers blame elevated demand and unscheduled maintenance. However, the underlying cause is the ongoing war. Ukraine has systematically targeted Russian refineries this year, aiming to disrupt Moscow's military logistics and cut into its crucial energy revenues.
Everything is very bad. To find fuel, you probably need to drive across half of Moscow. And even in this case, you will not find it. You will have to wait for 2 or 3 hours in a queue.
The Kremlin is taking emergency measures to shield the domestic market. Authorities have banned fuel exports, relaxed quality standards, and even started importing petroleum products to boost supply.
German investigators have made a second arrest over the sabotage of the Nord Stream gas pipelines. A Ukrainian suspect has been detained in Croatia under a European arrest warrant, accused of allegedly helping plant the explosives in 2022. Anita Sharma has more.
Welcome to This Day in Europe, where Germany makes another major breakthrough in the investigation into the Nord Stream sabotage. A second Ukrainian suspect was arrested over the 2022 explosions that severely damaged the Nord Stream gas pipelines beneath the Baltic Sea. German prosecutors identify him as Vladimir Zhuravlyov, a trained scuba diver arrested in Croatia under a European warrant. They allege he was part of a team that rented a yacht in Germany and planted explosives on the pipelines near the Danish island of Bornholm. But this is not Zhuravlyov's first arrest. He was actually detained in Poland last year, only for a Polish court to reject Germany's extradition request, with the judge arguing that if Ukraine was responsible, the attack could be considered a legitimate act of war. The other suspect, former Ukrainian military officer Sergei Kuznetsov, was arrested in Italy and extradited to Germany. Prosecutors accuse him of leading the operation, but he denies responsibility. The blast ruptured 3 of Nord Stream's 4 pipelines. Initial suspicion focused on Russia before evidence began pointing toward possible Ukrainian involvement. Kyiv has repeatedly denied any role. The pipelines have long divided Europe. Germany championed Nord Stream as a source of Russian gas, while Poland, Ukraine, and the U.S. warned it left Berlin dangerously dependent on Moscow. German prosecutors believe the aim of the sabotage was to permanently cut those gas links and deny Moscow future energy revenues. And the case now carries an uncomfortable political dimension. Germany pursuing allegations of Ukrainian involvement in an attack on its energy infrastructure, even as Berlin remains one of Kyiv's most important supporters. For A News, I'm Anita Sharma in Arnhem, Netherlands.
Turkey looks set to host another meeting of the so-called Regional 4 group of foreign ministers in Istanbul later this month. It comes as Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan invited his Pakistani counterpart to attend. The R4 group, which also includes Saudi Arabia and Egypt, was formed in March to coordinate diplomatic efforts over Middle Eastern security. Adam Morrow has more from Istanbul.
Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has invited Ishak Dar, Pakistan's Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, to Istanbul for a possible meeting of the Regional 4 or R4 group of foreign ministers. According to Pakistan's Foreign Office, the invitation was extended in a Wednesday telephone call in which the 2 top diplomats also discussed joint efforts to promote regional peace and stability. Dar accepted the invitation and confirmed that he would attend the meeting, which Pakistan says is expected to take place in Istanbul later this month. Ankara, however, has yet to announce an exact date for the tentative meeting. The R4, which includes Turkey, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, has emerged as a regular consultation mechanism on Middle Eastern security issues. The 4 foreign ministers last met in Amman, Jordan, on August 5th on the sidelines of a ministerial gathering focused on Jerusalem. At that meeting, they reaffirmed support for an independent Palestinian state based on pre-1967 borders, while stressing the need for enhanced diplomatic coordination to prevent further regional escalation. In June, the group held its 4th formal meeting in Cairo, where talks focused on de-escalation and efforts to achieve regional stability. The possible upcoming meeting in Istanbul would come as the 4 countries deepen coordination on regional security challenges, including the ongoing conflict between Iran and the United States. Fidan has described the 4-country platform as an increasingly important regional mechanism. The meeting would also come shortly after Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan signed a landmark joint defense pact in Mecca adding a key security aspect to relations between 3 of the 4 R4 members. This is Adam Morrow for A News in Istanbul, Turkey.
Turkey has said it's ready to work with Damascus to search for oil and gas in Syria. Speaking in the Syrian capital, Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar said Turkish oil company and private companies are prepared to carry out seismic surveys and exploration drilling, both offshore and onshore. Bayraktar also announced that Turkey and Syria will soon commission new infrastructure that will nearly triple electricity transmission capacity to more than 800 megawatts. The 2 countries also signed a memorandum of understanding on phosphate resources. Meanwhile, Israel has warned it will not tolerate any Turkish military presence in Syria that it considers a threat to its own security. The latest exchange has further deepened tensions between the 2 regional powers. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued the warning after Israeli strikes in the Abu Duhur air base in northern Syria, hours after a Turkish delegation had visited the facility. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz accused President Erdogan of dragging Turkey into what he called dangerous adventures in Syria. He warned him against testing Israel's determination to defend itself. Turkey rejected Israel's claims as unfounded and accused Netanyahu of trying to justify strikes on Syrian territory. Syrian Foreign Minister Assad Hassan al-Shaibani has arrived in Islamabad for talks with Pakistani leaders on bilateral ties and regional developments. Al-Shaibani, who is leading a higher-level delegation, met with his Pakistani counterpart and is also expected to hold talks with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and other senior officials. The visit marks the first trip by a Syrian foreign minister to Pakistan in 19 years and comes amid heightened regional tensions. The 2 sides are expected to discuss ways to strengthen cooperation. This visit comes at a particularly sensitive moment, with Syria facing growing regional security pressures, including tensions involving Israel and Turkey. At the same time, Pakistan is part of the newly established Mecca Joint Defense Agreement with Saudi Arabia and Turkey, raising questions about Islamabad's role in the changing Middle East. To discuss this further, we're joined by Lamis Jadid, political analyst speaking to us from Geneva, Switzerland. Ms. Jadid, let me start. Welcome to the program first. Welcome to the program, Ms. Jadid.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let me start with the significance of this visit. Why is the first visit by a Syrian foreign minister to Pakistan in 19 years important at this particular moment?
Because we are in a moment of change, a moment of changing alliance, a moment when the old structure is showing that it's not functioning anymore. And Syria, of course, has changed its face, of course, its alliance. The new leadership, they are completely on the American side and completely under the Turkish control as well. And this new visit, I think it was promoted by the Turkish Prime Minister, and the new alliance that's been formed in Mecca between Pakistan, Turkey, and Saudi Arabia.
So what are Pakistan's principal strategic interests in Syria? Are we talking primarily about diplomacy and regional stability, or does Islamabad also see economic security and geopolitical opportunities?
Pakistan is playing a role of mediation now, and we all know that it really functioned well regarding the war on the Hormuz Strait and between America and Iran. So Pakistan now is trying to be as much as useful for the security of the whole region, but also maybe for shaping the new corridors that might be an alternative to Hormuz and the cut of energy that's happening in Hormuz. Syria, as we said just in your program just now, they said that they are willing really to go for exploring more opportunities in the gas, Mediterranean gas. Turkey is interested, and now while Syria is under the sphere of the Turkish influence in a way, it might be interesting for the three countries to have more other countries joining, especially the Prime Minister, Pakistani Prime Minister. He invited so many other Muslim countries, as he said, though there is not such a word as Muslim. Islam is fractioned now as never before, and clearly he invited Sunni countries, other Sunni countries, or not even other Sunni countries that are falling under the same agenda of the maybe American agenda in the region. But all this alliance might provoke many other reactions from other countries like India, like Israel, security concerns. So we will wait and we will see maybe a quantity of the response or the amount of the response, or maybe other alliance that might be formed as a response to what might come if Syria or even Egypt enter this alliance.
So Syria is currently under pressure from several directions, including tensions with Israel and concerns over Turkish military involvement. What role can Pakistan realistically play in helping reduce those tensions?
I think Pakistan, as I started, is trying to take a role of a mediator between in the conflicts that's happening in the region. I'm not sure to what extent this could be useful when it comes to the conflict, Israeli-Turkish conflict over Syrian territory, and while each country has a different agenda. All this is speculation. We cannot really go to this extent in exploring what Pakistani wants from the Syrian right now. But I think the first indication might take us to adding Syria to this new alliance. And this might provoke more trouble with Israel, more than playing a mediator in this conflict.
So, but what does Syria want from Pakistan at this stage? Is Damascus primarily looking for political support, economic assistance, security cooperation, or greater diplomatic recognition and integration?
All of what you mentioned now. Syria wants international admission, they want support, they want approval, and also they want to somehow get aligned with the same type of rulingship. So we see such approach is growing. All the recent visits was with Islamic countries. So we could sense that some kind of Islamic union, or some kind of what's called now here some kind of a NATO Islamic Sunni country in a way is going is under shape, and maybe Syria also will add to it. And it's a very important, it's strategic point, not only for the resources it has, but it's as an alternative to any kind of blockade that might happen even in the future in straits like Hormuz or Bab al-Mandab.
Ms. Jadid, Syria's transitional government is trying to rebuild the country after years of conflict and international isolation. Could Pakistan become involved in Syria's reconstruction, trade, infrastructure, or energy sectors?
I think Pakistan might have the expertise to help Syrians get into enforcing their military, the military and army that was completely dissolved after the falling of Assad. by the Israeli themselves. They could help this, but I think other Arab countries that have financial means to rebuild the country. Of course, when we speak about three countries coming together to help the Syrian, like Turkey is the biggest army in the region and also an industry power in the whole Asiatic sphere. Saudi Arabia is a financial support, and Pakistan is a nuclear power as well. I'm not sure Syria will go to gain a lot from this nuclear power expertise, because already they just announced that there was a site of some leftover from the last regime of some nuclear facilities that they want to dissolve. So I think it's more politically, it's more not financially really. It could help in building the army, and it's another reassurance for this new government and its international acceptance.
Pakistan has its own major security challenges, particularly along its western borders. Could counter-terrorism or intelligence cooperation become a significant part of the emerging Syria-Pakistan relationship?
Of course, if we could now, as I mentioned at the beginning, if we could just imagine this triangle that's being formed, even if it's not until today functioning, because after announcing this military alliance between these three countries, Houthi in Yemen, they attacked facilities in Saudi Arabia, and nothing happened from the other two countries. But we know that Iran is captured in this triangle, and we know that Pakistan has real issue with India. So, of course, Pakistan could... now Pakistan is not alone in all this. I think Pakistan is inviting Syria, as we spoke earlier, on the behalf of the other two countries, or on the behalf of a new vision for the whole region, and maybe convincing or influencing or asking from the new leadership of Syria just to join simply, or to facilitate any type of agreement that might affect the whole region. So, of course, Pakistan has issues on its borders, but I think Syria cannot help a lot in this, except that it's a strategic placement in the Middle East.
Lamis Jalid, thank you very much for this discussion. We truly appreciate your time and insights. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. After the break, we'll look at more stories shaping the region. Welcome back to A News. Kazakhstan is entering the final days of campaigning ahead of Sunday's parliamentary election. Parties are making their last push for votes before campaigning officially ends. Our correspondent Fariza Kalimurzuna has more from Almaty.
Kazakhstan is heading into a parliamentary election that will look very different from previous votes. The election on August 23rd will be the first held under the country's new constitution, approved in a referendum in March and in force since July 1st. The parliamentary system has changed significantly. The former two-chamber parliament made up of the Senate and the Majlis has been replaced by a unicameral parliament known as the Kurultai with 145 seats. For voters, the key change is how those seats will be filled. All members will now be elected through party lists with no single-member districts. And under this new system, 7 parties are contesting the election. Together, they have nominated 545 candidates, including 172 women. The average age is just over 45. Among them, the main newcomer is Adilet. It was registered in June, becoming the first new party to secure registration in 3 years. But the biggest political development came when Amanat, formerly Nurotan, and the country's dominant political force for decades, merged with Adilet. And it's not only the party landscape that is changing. The new parliamentary structure also means there will be one speaker instead of two, a position likely to carry greater influence. The election will be observed by 777 international monitors from 42 countries and 13 international organizations. And in just 3 days, voters will cast their ballots for one of 7 parties or choose the against all option. The vote will determine the first composition of Kazakhstan's new Kurultai. Fariza Kalimurzina, Almaty, A News.
Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan are looking to expand economic ties with the two countries, targeting $1 billion in bilateral trade by the end of the decade. Both sides preparing a new roadmap to support investment and business cooperation, as Sevil Rajapova reports from Tashkent.
Uzbekistan and Azerbaijan are preparing a program aimed at increasing bilateral trade to $1 billion by 2030. The target was discussed during a meeting between Uzbekistan's Investment, Industry and Trade Minister Laziz Kudvatov and Azerbaijan's ambassador to Uzbekistan Rashad Mamadov. Trade between the two countries reached $307 million in 2025. Up nearly 15% from the previous year. In the first half of 2026, turnover rose by more than 30% year-on-year, reaching $170 million. The growth has been driven by increasingly diversified trade, ranging from food products and manufactured goods to vehicles, machinery, and industrial materials. Azerbaijan also plays an important role as a transport link connecting Uzbekistan with the South Caucasus and European markets through the Caspian Sea. The sides are now preparing a roadmap to implement existing agreements and expand trade and investment cooperation. They are also looking to strengthen direct links between businesses and regions in both countries. With trade already showing strong growth, Tashkent and Baku are now seeking to turn this momentum into long-term economic cooperation and reach the $1 billion trade target by 2030. Cyril Vajap reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
The World Robot Conference has opened in Beijing. Robot martial arts and dance performances have attracted particular attention at the event. Experts attending the conference have highlighted China's rapid advances in the field.
The 2026 World Robot Conference has opened in Beijing. More than 300 Chinese and international companies are taking part in this year's event, showcasing more than 3,000 new robotics technologies and innovative products.
The robot dance, very interesting. I think the technology is advancing quite a bit, as we saw in the marathon, and each year that I come to WRC, I see new advancements. I'm very impressed by what I see that Beijing is doing, and throughout China, there's a lot of adoption of robotics.
The opening ceremony also featured a special performance by robots demonstrating martial arts, which attracted considerable interest from visitors.
I'm a fifth time here, but every year I see an enormous progress. I mean, robotics is making major progress. It's amazing to see this.
China continues to make significant advances in robotics each year and is now considered one of the global leaders in the field.
And this concludes our news update for the hour. Thank you for your time and stay tuned to A News for more updates.